Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of my team selector and preview ahead of tomorrow night's game against Spurs in the Premier League. It's a big game, one of Chelsea's biggest games on the calendar. I think back to the first game between Chelsea and Spurs this season back in November. That almost feels like a different season, to be honest. The context, the fact that, of course, Frank Lampard was still manager Chelsea, were doing quite well back then, and it felt like there could even be a title charge this season for both Chelsea and Spurs. But so much has changed for both clubs. More radically, of course, for Chelsea recently with the changing in head coach, but just the way both of us look at the season now as clubs, you know, it's that race for top four once again. And you do feel like Chelsea, as well, going into this game, the momentum has sort of shifted in a sense going into it with recent form. Of course, Tottenham struggling, Harry Kane being injured going into this game, and Chelsea winning against Burnley. So Chelsea do have a chance to pick up points against a team ahead of them, and it does feel like a bit of a playoff really in terms of that top four. I think if Chelsea were to go away to Spurs tomorrow night and get a convincing 3 points, or just 3 points in general, I think it massively changes the dynamic going into the rest of the season, basically. There still is a long way to go and a lot can happen, as we know, in this Premier League season. But I think for Chelsea, for Tuchel, and as well for Jose Mourinho, I think it'd be a real dent in their season, to be honest, already struggling in recent form. But before we get into any of that good stuff, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also hit the like button if you're enjoying the content, because it helps out the channel as well. So Thomas Tuchel doing his press conference earlier today. I love listening to Thomas Tuchel speak about football. I felt some of the questions, especially early on from Sky in that press conference, were just ridiculous. Like 4 questions about Spurs that were like almost irrelevant to the game tomorrow. It was quite frustrating, but I felt he dealt with them in a classy way, and the way he spoke about the team once again, Chelsea moving forward, what he said about Mason Mount, really encouraging stuff. In reference to team news, which for me in a press conference is the most relevant and important information, which we eventually got, saying that Zouma and Kai Havertz left training early with little issues and are being examined now and are doubtful to play for Chelsea against Spurs. Now, Zouma hasn't featured in neither of the 2 games so far for Tuchel, and Kai Havertz was on the bench against Burnley, did come on late on. So it'd be a shame to miss both of those players. I think they're big players for Chelsea, and in the context of the current team, I think obviously with the big squad we have, there's a lot of players who could feature in these roles and have good influences in the game tomorrow. But let's have a look at Spurs under Jose Mourinho. The history there, it's, you know, very stereotypical to bring up Jose Mourinho in this game and talk about obviously his relationship to Chelsea, how fractured it is now being at Spurs. It feels like there's a bit of doom and gloom at Spurs with Jose at the moment, especially based on earlier in the season when they were flying. You know, Son and Kane were working so well together. It felt like a lot of things were clicking for Jose Mourinho, and it felt like they would be in for the hunt for the Premier League title this season. But Harry Kane's goals drying up to that Son and Kane connection sort of fading. And if you remember when Chelsea played Spurs in November, I think we were one of the first teams to really shut down Kane and Son, and then you saw several other teams do it. I remember Leicester beating them 2-0, and they've really struggled in recent weeks, and they've been dropping points. The style of play is quite turgid, and you do wonder going into this game, it's a real must-win for Jose Mourinho. It's a must-not-lose, and that's why I think his approach to the game, as fully expected, is going to be quite pragmatic and defensive against Chelsea. But of course, Son is their biggest player at the moment, and I think is the biggest danger man tomorrow for Chelsea to watch out for, especially on the break. He is devastating in front of goal. He's their top goal scorer this season. They're 6th in the Premier League currently, lost 2 of their last 5 games, and there just is a lack of energy and spark to their play. They did start with a 3-4-2-1, so there could be matching formations tomorrow night from Jose Mourinho and Thomas Tuchel for Tottenham and Chelsea respectively, as we can see here. Gareth Bale and Heung-min Son as sort of the 2 behind Bergwijn as sort of the lone striker. They really have an issue when Kane is out. Kane is so vital to Tottenham, and it's just a bit surprising to me that it still is this issue. We know that Harry Kane gets injured around January, February time. It seems the winter period really takes its toll on Harry Kane, and he seems to always get injured at this period for a few months, and they don't seem to have a backup plan for him. And you know, going into a game like this, as we saw at a similar time last season when we faced Spurs, they really lacked a focal point, and hopefully that'll be the case again for Chelsea to defend against and hopefully keep a clean sheet. 3rd in a row in the Premier League if we do stop Spurs scoring tomorrow at their stadium. But I also look in midfield, Tonga and Dele has been much improved under Jose Mourinho this season. He still is a player that I do wonder what Jose's doing with him in terms of how much confidence he has in Ndombele, because he doesn't feel like a Jose Mourinho type player, especially in the centre of the park. But I love watching Ndombele play. He's got that technique, he's got that guile and finesse, especially in terms of creatively. He's improved his game and has become adapted to the Premier League much more. So in terms of the lack of spark they have, I think a lot of it is going to come through Ndombele if they are to create chances tomorrow night. So in midfield, Chelsea have to try and shut down Ndombele, in my opinion. But let's get into my predicted 11 for Chelsea. Once again, very hard to predict, but I think it's a little bit easier than it was for Burnley, seeing that 3-back system once again. That's what I'm going for. So as you can see on screen now, my predicted lineup for the game tomorrow night. We're going for a very similar lineup, basically. In terms of the defence, I think Mendy, Dave, Thiago Silva and Rudiger will be the back three. I just think back-to-back clean sheets. I think the confidence probably they'll have in chemistry, playing together, keeping those clean sheets, keeping Burnley at bay the other day. I do wonder if just for Tuchel's consistency wise, we'll go over this once again. And Thiago Silva, I do wonder, you're going to have to rotate him sooner rather than later with the amount of games Chelsea have in a short space of time. So we could see Thiago Silva play this game tomorrow, a big game against Spurs, but then be rested against Sheffield United on Sunday evening. Going into that double six, I'm going to make one change though, with N'Golo Kante coming in for Jorginho. I just think this is a perfect time for Kante to come into this match. I'm thinking about Spurs midfield, Højbjerg, Ndombele, the energy there. We have to win this midfield battle in a game of this nature. And although I do feel Chelsea are going to have a lot of the ball in this game, I still would like N'Golo Kante, especially for the threat of transition. And with Tuchel saying how much he loves N'Golo Kante, I feel he may use him in this game now he's back from injury. So Kante, Kovacic, played really well the other day. Let's hope he replicates that performance against a better side in Spurs away from home. Hudson-Odoi at right wing back. This is a massive test for Callum Hudson-Odoi against better opposition, and seeing how it works against better opposition if, of course, Tuchel starts with the 3-4-2-1 again with Callum as right wing back. With a team like Spurs, who I think are going to sit deeper, either it's a 4-back or a 3-back system, hopefully the space will be there. It's just about him creating chances. I think the supply of chances he's been creating for the forwards in recent games has been really impressive. Those low crosses into the box have been so devastating, but Chelsea just haven't been able to capitalise on them as much. But I do feel Callum, this is a massive chance to really show his quality and show that his form isn't just against lower sides where Chelsea naturally dominate. He can have an impact on a big game with big consequences in the season for Chelsea. So I really hope Callum Hudson-Odoi has a great night tomorrow against Spurs, because he needs it and Chelsea need it for a big 3 points. Marcos Alonso as well, I think, will keep his place at left wing back. We know the history with Marcos Alonso. Narratively, it would make so much sense for him tomorrow to pop up with a big goal. He scored the other day. I don't feel his overall performance against Burnley was that impressive, but I just feel Tuchel will stick with Marcos Alonso given maybe his track record against Spurs. We'll have to wait and see on that front. So I'm going to go with Marcos Alonso as left wing back once again. And then we go to the front three. I think Mason Mount has to be starting this game. He's one of Chelsea's best players. The other day, I want his raw energy in midfield. Sometimes can drop a little bit deeper if Chelsea need a little bit of help in the centre of the park. And also transitioning play, trying to have that connection from left to right like we saw against Burnley, and trying to exploit the space, especially unleashing Callum Hudson-Odoi. And I think Mason Mount's a big part of that. Christian Pulisic, I think, will start as well. A player Tuchel knows very well and came off the bench against Burnley at half-time. I felt him and Timo Werner, as you can see on my formation here, I feel that Tuchel may go for a faster front line in a sense of not having an obvious focal point and seeing how that works. I was really intrigued to see him do that against Burnley, where it looked more like a 3-5-2. And as I was saying about Callum Hudson-Odoi, those low crosses into the box, I think really benefit players like Timo Werner and especially Christian Pulisic. Pulisic has such a knack and anticipation for being in the right place at the right time. He's got an anticipation for goals, and I do wonder if Pulisic and Werner will start this game. And sort of, as I say on the formation, it looks like a 3-4-2-1, but actually may look more like a 3-5-2 once again. I think it's really hard to predict because Tammy Abraham, quite harsh on Tammy. I thought he had a disappointing first half against Burnley, but he did score a hat-trick against Luton recently. He's had some good performances for Chelsea this season. Olivier Giroud, you always back him in certain games to really hold up the ball and create havoc for opposition defences. It's been so unpredictable so far. I mean, Tammy could play this game, Tammy and Werner could play this game, Giroud and Werner could play this game. It could just be Olivier Giroud in the front three that I've sort of named. It's so unpredictable at the moment, and he may even shock us all by scrapping the 3-back system, go to a 4-3-3, a little bit more of a progressive system for this game for Chelsea to go on the front foot. So we have to wait and see, but that is my lineup. But let me know your lineups in the comments below. A massive game for Chelsea in the context of this Premier League season. Fingers crossed we get a big 3 points and continue our upwards momentum over the past week. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.